that sort of thing. Your most recent one, your most recent novel, Time's Mouth.
Mhm.
Uh, I heard that it took you 7 years to to write. Well, 7 years, seven. It's more like five, but most people say 7 years to write that book. You've claimed before that it's the book you felt you were meant to write, but you've also mentioned how if you could go back in time, you would not write a book about time travel. So it's like this sort of like conflicting, sort of a complicated relationship with this book, it feels.
It's true. So I feel like it's my most recent book that I've finished. So I feel the most confident about it in terms of like I think this is my best book. I hope I write better ones because I don't want this to be done. But it was a very hard process. It took 7 years if you're counting like every single day from the moment I wrote the first page to the moment that I turned in my copy edits at the very end. But that time also included doing like copy edits of Woman Number 17. It includes taking a year off of writing because of the quarantine.
Right.
It takes a months at a time when I was working on like longer short stories that got published. So it wasn't like a continuous 7 years of work, but it definitely took me longer than any of the other books. And it had a much more intense rewriting process than I had been used to before. So I think everybody has to start a book thinking like, one, nobody cares, but two, also the world will be totally changed by this, right? You have to have like two delusions going on at one time that you're nobody and you're the most important person, because otherwise, why would you spend the time doing this weird thing? And also, you have to have the delusion that, like, oh, this will be like a challenge, like I'm interested in it, but it's going to be that hard. Because if you knew how hard it was going to be, would you want to do it? And that's what I mean by like, if I could time travel, because I think I started off naively being like, oh, a time travel book will be so like appealing to readers. And also, like, it can't be that hard, but it is extremely hard to write a time travel book. But at the same time, I purposely wanted to write a book that was formally much different from my other two books, that was bigger, that took more, covered more time. Like I purposely set up all these like aesthetic formal challenges for myself because that's like what's keeping me interested. So it kind of took everything out of me, and it also is very important to me.
uh, there is a there's a similar sort of, just from what I've gathered, there seems to be like a similar theme, a pattern of sort of um a pattern of ideals and uh concepts, or themes, I guess, of parenthood and family in pretty much all three of your novels, it feels. There's this sort of like pattern, and I was wondering if that was intentional or if that's just where your mind wanders off to, because you said before that when writing a book, meaning sort of kind of happens along the way rather than the intention at the beginning. So I was wondering if that was intentional or not.
Yeah, I like to quote Flannery O'Connor, who says that meaning in a text is accumulated as you move through the text, and that's the same, I think, for the reader and the writer. Like you can't, she says, like you can't just like summarize what a story is, right? You have to like read the story to experience the meaning. And when I'm writing, I don't set out ahead of time with like these are my themes, because that feels like it will end up being like a very short, boring process and you'll explain too much. And I really love those early drafts where you're like, I don't know what this all means. Like the color red keeps coming up, or like there's a crack. This is so obvious, but there's a crack in the foundation. What could it mean? Like you're just kind of like in the world exploring, and that's the fun part to me. But I think it's kind of strange to now that I have three novels, it's sort of like I can't hide anymore. Like what I'm interested in or what I become obsessed with keeps coming up, like whether it's like enclosed communities, parenting, being parented, California, intimacy, secrets. Like I obviously come back to the same ideas. When I wrote California, when I started it, I didn't have kids. I was not I didn't have kids, but midway through the process of writing it, I was pregnant, and then I had a child by the time I finished the book. So I became a mother during the drafting and redrafting of that book. And then I think from then on, that was part of my life. And now I have three kids. So like my everyday reality is like, I have kids, like I have to do all kinds of shit for them all the time. So, um, that is just, I think, what is in my life right now. That's like the material that I'm drawing from. So I don't know when I'm a lot older that if you know, my kid, obviously parenting will still be a part of my life, but it won't be like hopefully an everyday labor. So it'll be interesting to see how like my subjects change. But you know, I'm working on another book that is also, it's about a mother. So for now, I'm pretty much in it.
It's interesting because it sort of, from what you said, it sort of feels like California was when you wrote the book and when it came out, like you had two kids in a way, because
Yeah.
you had your actual yeah, you had your actual real kid, and then you had the book that you created at
Yes, exactly.
the same time. That's really that's interesting.
Yeah.